Have you ever sat on the sidelines, watching everyone else run past you, simply because you were waiting for a signal that never came? What if I told you that the very thing you're waiting for, that feeling of being ready, is actually the single biggest trap standing between you and your future wealth? And what if that waiting is silently costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars, right now? Hi, I'm Daniel Brooks, and you're watching Wealthic Voyage. Today, we're diving into the silent wealth killer that traps beginners and even seasoned investors, the myth of feeling ready. We are going to break down exactly how much money you leave on the table when you wait for the perfect moment, and more importantly, how you can stop the bleeding today. So, let's start with a question that hits home. Have you ever said this to yourself? I'll start investing once I pay off my credit cards. Or, I'll wait until I have an extra $1,000. Maybe, I need to read just one more book before I buy my first stock. I've been there. In fact, this story isn't just some research I pulled. It's my story. And honestly, it stings a little to tell it. Years ago, I got my first real job. I was making decent money, or at least, it felt like a fortune compared to my college budget. I remember opening a savings account, feeling incredibly proud. I was saving $500 a month. I felt like a financial genius. But investing? Oh no, that was for the experts. I didn't feel ready. I thought the stock market was a casino and I didn't want to lose my hard-earned cash gambling, so I waited. I kept stacking cash in a high-yield savings account, which was good, don't get me wrong. But I told myself, Daniel, just wait until the market dips a bit. Wait until you understand what a P/E ratio is. Wait until you feel older, more stable. Does this mindset sound familiar? It's that feeling that you need to have your entire life figured out before you can take a small step. Here is the dangerous psychological trap we fall into. We equate feeling ready with having all the answers. We think that because the financial world is complex, we need a PhD in economics to buy a share of an index fund. Let's look at a real-life example. Imagine two friends. Let's call them Sarah and Mike. Sarah is 25. She's scared, she doesn't feel ready. She decides to wait until she's 35 to start investing. She thinks, I'll focus on my career and travel now. She saves her money, but she keeps it in cash. Mike is also 25. He doesn't feel ready either. He's nervous, but he decides to start anyway. He puts just $300 a month into a low-cost broad market index fund, a simple basket of stocks. Fast forward 10 years. Sarah is now 35. She finally feels ready. She has a better job, she feels stable. She starts investing $500 a month, double what Mike was putting in. She's playing catch-up, right? She's investing more money. She should catch up to Mike easily, don't you think? If you do the math, assuming an average market return of about 8%, by the time they both reach age 65, Sarah has invested a total of $180,000 of her own money. Mike has only invested $108,000. Sarah put in $72,000 more of her own hard-earned cash than Mike did. She tried harder, she saved more aggressively later in life, but who has more money at the finish line? Mike. Mike has about $520,000. Sarah? She has around $460,000. Sarah waited to feel ready. She thought starting later with more money was the safer, smarter bet. But by waiting 10 years, she lost out on the most powerful force in the universe, compound interest. She wasn't just late to the party had already moved to a different location. This brings us to a crucial question. Why do we do this? Why do we prioritize feeling safe over building wealth? It comes down to loss aversion. It's a psychological concept that says we humans hate losing money twice as much as we like making it. When you have $1,000 in your savings account, you feel safe, you can touch it. If you put that $1,000 into the stock market and it drops to $900 the next week, you feel physical pain. You feel stupid. You think, see, I wasn't ready. I remember a friend of mine, let's call him Dave. Dave had a credit card debt of about $5,000. He was paying 18% interest on it. He also had $5,000 sitting in a checking account doing absolutely nothing. He was terrified to invest the $5,000 because he wanted to keep it as an emergency fund. I asked him, Dave, The credit card company is charging you 18% to borrow their money. If you pay off that card, you just made a guaranteed 18% return on your money. The stock market can't promise you that. He looked at me and said, "Yeah, but if I pay off the card, I have no cash. What if I lose my job?" He was paralyzed by the what ifs. He was waiting to feel like he had a mountain of cash before he fixed his debt. But the math didn't care about his feelings. Every month he waited, he was handing the credit card company free money. And that is the point. The market does not care if you feel ready. Inflation does not care if you feel confident. Time is the only asset you can never buy back. Now let's address another fear. People often tell me, "I didn't invest because the market was at an all-time high. I wanted to wait for a crash." Have you heard that one? I'm waiting for the dip. Here's a story that illustrates why this is a terrible strategy. Back in 2008, the financial crisis hit. The housing market collapsed. Stocks plummeted. It was terrifying. If you had money on the sidelines, you probably felt like a genius. You patted yourself on the back for not investing. "See," you said, "I knew it was risky." But then, as the market started to recover in 2009 and 2010, did people jump in? No. Most people waited to feel safe again. They waited for the news to turn positive. But by the time the news was positive, the stock market had already recovered most of its losses. A famous study by Fidelity looked at their best-performing accounts. Do you know what kind of people owned them? They weren't professional traders. They weren't day traders glued to Bloomberg terminals. They were dead people. I know that sounds dark, but hear me out. These were people who opened accounts, invested consistently, and then simply forgot about them. They didn't log in to check the balance. They didn't panic sell when the market dropped. They didn't wait to feel ready to buy more. They just let the machine run. They didn't have investment anxiety because they weren't paying attention. They avoided the cost of delay simply by staying in the game. So, how do we fix this? How do we move from paralysis by analysis to action? First, we have to redefine what ready means. If ready means knowing everything, you will never be ready. If ready means the market is definitely going up, you will never be ready. Ready should simply mean, I have a small amount of money I won't need for 5 years, and I understand that stocks go up and down. That's it. That is the only entry fee. Let me give you a real-life example of how to start small, so small that it doesn't even hurt. This is about breaking the psychological dam. Instead of looking at your savings account and thinking, I need to invest $10,000 right now, look at your daily habits. The latte factor is a cliché, but it's true for a reason. Let's say you buy a fancy coffee every morning for $6. That's $180 a month. What if you made coffee at home 3 days a week? You save about $70 a month. If you take that $70 and put it into an investment account, and you do that for 30 years, assuming an 8% return, do you know what you end up with? Roughly $100,000, $100,000, just from switching how you drink coffee 3 days a week. But here is the kicker. That money only grows if you start today. If you wait 5 years to get your coffee habit under control, you cut that final number in half. The delay cost you $50,000, all because you didn't feel ready to make a tiny change today. I want to talk about the emotional cost of waiting, not just the financial cost. When I finally started investing, I was nervous. I transferred $500 into a brokerage account. My finger hovered over the buy button for 10 minutes. I swear my heart was racing. I felt like I was jumping off a cliff. I clicked it. The stock dropped 2% the next day. I felt sick. I thought, I knew it. I'm not ready. I should sell. But I didn't sell. I forced myself to leave it alone. I forced myself to look at the long-term chart instead of the daily ticker. 3 months later, the stock was up 5%. A year later, up 20%. That feeling of sickness? That was fear of the unknown. Once you face it once, the second time is easier. The third time, you're bored. You realize that the market is just a noisy crowd of people, and you don't need to listen to the noise. By waiting to feel ready, you are actually reinforcing your own fear. You are telling your brain, this is something to be afraid of. The only way to kill the fear is to take the action. So, where does this leave us? We have a choice every single day. We can choose the comfort of the sideline, where it feels safe but your future is slowly being eaten away by inflation and lost opportunity. Or we can choose the discomfort of the starting line. It's awkward. It's scary. You might feel like you don't belong. But here is the life lesson, the takeaway I want you to burn into your mind. You do not need to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Perfectionism is just procrastination in a tuxedo. Waiting to feel ready is a luxury you cannot afford. The cost of delay isn't just about the dollars and cents, though those are significant. The real cost is the version of yourself that you are preventing from existing. The version of you that is financially free, that has options, that can help their family, that can retire with dignity. That version of you is waiting on the other side of your first investment, but they can only exist if you make the decision to stop waiting. So, open the app, transfer the $50, buy the index fund. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be done. Your future self is watching you right now. Don't let them down.